Hi guys, welcome back to another video. As you can probably tell by the title of this video, I just wanted to make a quick video looking at what food that I feed my fish. I've recently done a video on what I feed my corals and how I feed my corals, so I thought this one would just be a look at what I feed in my fish. The main thing with this video, I suppose, and feeding your fish is it all depends on what fish you have and how heavily stocked your tank is. I run my tank pretty close to being fully stocked. I have recently got rid of some fish, so now my stock list is a bit lower than what it usually is, but I'm happy enough with that. So I think one of the main things when it comes to feeding, people are debating is, frozen food, fish flakes, pellets, and them types of things. I tend to mainly feed frozen food. I do also offer live food once a week, but the frozen food, I will try and insert some pictures here just so you can see what I'm using. I use Mysis RS, which is frozen. I think it's blast chilled, so it really does, like, you defrost a bit off it and the water that it's defrosted in is crystal clear. Compared to some of the other stuff that, again, I still use. I use the TMC Gamma Mysis with garlic, and you defrost that in the water and the water's just so cloudy. So that sort of leads me on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about is, people debate whether you should or shouldn't rinse the frozen food before adding it to the tank. Personally, I don't rinse anything. I've got enough corals in there and it's a well-established reef. So I just tip all the water in that's in the cup, basically. But there are also some other, methods of feeding your fish and how you actually do it. So you can use the turkey baster. I've used the turkey baster for the last couple of years. But what I have found is, because I feed my tank around 5 times a day, a couple of times in the morning and then a couple of times in the afternoon and evening, which works well for me. It works well for my fish. So I just found when I was using the turkey baster, I was getting too much food in each time I was feeding, basically. So what I've moved to now, which is another method, is I use a pair of tweezers and I'll pick out, a nice little pinch of mysis or krill or whatever it is that I'm feeding on that day, and just hold it in the tank. The fish come up to the tweezers and they'll take the food straight out of the tweezers, which then it also allows me to ensure that I know every fish is getting some food. Because I think, some people will just put some food in the tank and then either sit back or walk off. Feeding time is a really good opportunity to, look at your fish up close, check them over for any parasites or anything that might be going wrong with them. So that's another reason why I really enjoy using the tweezers. Plus, it gets the fish used to me being that close up to the tank. I know when I first introduced a couple of these fish, they were a bit shy, so whenever I'd walk up to the tank, they would hide behind the rockwork. And, that's their own prerogative. If they feel threatened, they will hide. But by me getting close to the tank and with the tweezers introducing food, the fish will slowly get to know that I'm not going to cause them any harm. So that's why I enjoy doing that. Moving back on to, some of the different feeds that you can introduce into your tank. I've done a few different, fed a few different things. So when I first started the hobby, I used to feed flakes. And I can't say it's exactly this reason because my tank was still immature, so it had all cycled, but whenever I was feeding flakes, I would notice a big increase in nitrates and phosphates. Potentially could have been down to, how much I was feeding compared to what was in the tank. Fish, in my opinion, need a lot less than what people think, and it's always better to underfeed than overfeed until you get your eye in, basically. But yeah, I tend to see less of a nutrient spike when I'm feeding frozen foods, high quality frozen foods, than when I feed flake. But if frozen food's not an option for you, then here in the UK we get a couple of different brands of flake food, and I think the brands that I would go with is either a Vitalis. They do pellets, really good pellets. I use the Vitalis pellets for the LPS pellets for my corals, or like I said, the Ocean Nutrition. The nori that I use, I will only use Ocean Nutrition. It is a little bit pricey, but I just feel like it's one of the better ones. My fish always have a when I get into the tank, so feeding that is all I would do. Moving on to other things that you can introduce into the tank is live food. Live food for me is just great to watch the fish. Great to watch, and just knowing that the fish are getting, maybe something that they might find in the wild. So I will, on average, feed this once a week, sometimes twice a week if I get a few more packs from the shop. It mainly includes live mysis. I will sometimes get some live brine shrimp. The brine shrimp are adults, so there's not that much nutritional value to these, which is why I won't feed them as a staple. I will only feed them as just a bit of enrichment for the fish to watch them hunt them down. I do, in the warmer months, I will set up a brine shrimp hatchery and feed baby brine shrimp. Really good for the fish, packed full of protein. They are packed full of fats as well, so I would advise not feeding them on a constant basis. You don't want your fish to have a build-up of too much fats. But they are, it's great to watch it. The corals will enjoy catching little baby brine shrimp as well. And again, the amount that you're going to be feeding won't really have a negative impact on your tank. So it won't pollute your water unless you're dumping millions and millions of brine shrimp and you've only got a couple of fish in there. You shouldn't see any negative impacts on feeding baby brine shrimp. Other than, for me and what I've got in my tank, other than feeding mysis and baby brine shrimp, there's nothing else really. If you have bigger fish, I know in my old 5-foot tank, I used to have some larger tangs, and occasionally, I would throw in a couple of river shrimp. The tangs were about the only thing that would be able to take them river shrimp down. River shrimp or feeder shrimp, I can't remember what they're called. I think some people even call them ghost shrimp. They are a freshwater species, so I did obviously drain that out into the net and then put them in. But because they are a bit bigger and it was only the tangs that would eat them, it wasn't something that I did very often. But if you have bigger fish or puffers or anything like that that are able to take bigger foods down, then that opens up a whole new category of what you can feed, whether it be mussels, clams, oysters, squid, anything really, any seafoody things. What I would suggest doing that though is either get fresh from a fishmonger or get from a certified fish food company. I know people in the past have gone to supermarkets and got the seafood frozen mix, which is fit for human consumption, but a lot of the times they have additives in them, and it's just more things that you don't really need to add into your tank. If you want to enrich the food that you feed in, I know on some of the pictures that I put on earlier of the food that I feed, you can see on the Mysis RS one, the first picture, that's really high in protein. The moisture level, so how much water it's actually frozen in, is really, really small. Yet the TMC Gamma ones, the moisture level is about 80 something percent, I think it is, which means that there's a lot of water that's in them, either cubes or slabs. So that's why they tend to colour the water up a lot more. But again, the protein ratio that's in each shrimp that you feed and the good things for the tank is not as high as the other one. So it is something to look out for when you are purchasing food, is, look at the ingredients, look at the breakdown of what's in each, because there are some where you can feed 4 or 5 cubes a day and your fish are eating it, but it's basically like empty calories. It's junk food, it's not nutritious, it's not healthy for the fish. So spend a little bit more and get that top-notch food will do a lot for your fish and your tank. Now, something else regarding food that is available but I don't necessarily use, not for my fish anyway, I'll do it for my corals, but there is like liquid solutions where you can enrich the food. So you can put it onto your pellets or your frozen food, and that's basically like it's like a gloop, it's like a syrupy type thing, but it is packed full of omega-3s and fatty acids, plenty of amino acids and things like that. I did use it once many years ago. Again, when we're new to the hobby, we think that we need all these different things. It was an extra cost that I didn't need to do, and to be honest, I didn't notice any benefits from it. The only thing that I noticed was, the negatives, which was, it polluted the water a bit more. So in that instance, what I've done is opted for feeding a higher quality food rather than using additives to bump that food up. Other than that, really, I think, there's got to be a sense of use your own common sense on how you're feeding it. If you just want to feed flake and pellets, nowadays there is enough in flakes and pellets to, keep your fish happy. But just offering that variety will benefit the fish in the long run. We as humans, we wouldn't like to be eating the same things day in, day out. And I believe that to be true with everything, basically. Keeping it varied, keeping it balanced, and just using your common sense. If you're putting food in the tank and it's still floating around 10 minutes later, you've obviously put too much food in there. If you're putting food in and it's all gone within the first 20 seconds, maybe you should add a little bit more, or spread out those feeding times so you do feed once in the morning and once in the evening or something like that. I'm quite lucky that I work from home, so I have the opportunity to feed my tank whenever I want to. The only time really that I would advise adding more food than what you need is if you're trying to get your fish to breed. Clownfish, obviously one of the easiest fish to breed in the saltwater hobby, besides, cardinals, bangais and things like that, because they do everything themselves. But if you've got a bonded pair of clownfish and they've been paired up for a while, they've got their own territory, the tank's nice and established, by adding in more food and boosting the food going into the tank, it can sometimes trigger the clownfish into, you know, there's surplus amounts of food. If we lay our eggs, the babies are going to have enough food to eat. So that is something that, you know, I've got my other tank, which is a clownfish breeding setup, which I will go through. I will make a video on it. It's just going to be a long drawn out video because I'm filming the entire process. But that's something that I've noticed really does work. So I think, yeah, we'll start to wrap this video up. You can feed a multitude of different things, whether it be flake, pellets, frozen, live, and seaweed. Your different methods, you can use auto feeders. I wouldn't recommend using auto feeders every day if you are with the tank. In my experience, I've noticed that auto feeders can dump a bit more food in the tank than what's necessary. And like I said, them flakes and pellets seem to break down a lot quicker than what the natural food would, which then results in higher nitrates and phosphates. But by all means, you know, do your own tests, test your own water, test it before feeding frozen, or, you know, if you feed pellets and flakes every day, you'll know what your water chemistry is. Maybe stop doing that and start feeding frozen and see if you notice a difference. By all means, let me know. It'd be interesting to see how different things work for different people. But just in my experience, feeding the frozen food works out way better for me. So yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to put in this video. If you do have any questions, do let me know. Let me know what you feed your tank. And I'm always open to trying new things. I think that's a big part in this hobby, is taking on what other people do, seeing if it'll work for you, seeing how your fish respond to it, see how it, you know, your tank responds to it. So yeah, if there is anything, guys, let me know. Thank you if you have watched this far. Be sure to leave a like if you like the video and consider subscribing if you're not already. Thanks, guys.